No-code tools have transformed app development by allowing everyone to simply use a user interface to create their app's behavior instead of writing code. This allows everyone to build complicated apps which only the most experienced developers could have built before. However, there is a significant limitation with most no-code tools, one that prevents you from implementing a key functionality in your apps that your users would find very valuable. In this video, we will discuss the issue and showcase various solutions to enhance your no-code app and make it more appealing to your users. These solutions can be easily integrated into your apps and will make your apps more robust, richer, and more appealing to your users. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps that I'm going to be mentioning in today's video can be viewed and or cloned from my Patreon page, which you're going to find a link in the description below. Now, this topic was actually suggested by one of our amazing Patriot members, and I'm sure most of you are going to find it super, super valuable. Now, first, let's discuss the problem at hand, and then later in the video, I'm going to be showing you various solutions that you can use with your apps. So here I am logged into FlutterFlow, and I'm looking at an app that I built a while ago, a few months ago. And this is a very, very simple app that has a login, has the My Trips screen, has a button that the user can book a new trip. They can pick a country, they can pick a city in that country, and then they can pick a hotel in that city. And then finally, they can confirm. So it's a very, very simple app. And the idea is the user wants to go on a trip. They want to, pick a country. Maybe they want to visit Spain or France. They want to pick a city, and then they want to pick the hotel from that list. And here we have a diagram for this app. We have the basic user flow. So we have the login or register. If they're not logged in yet, they can book a new trip, or they can look at their existing trips. If they want to book a new trip, they're going to see a list of countries. They're going to see a list of cities. They're going to see a list of hotels, which we're going to get through an API via a third party. And then they're going to be able to confirm their hotel details and maybe get an email or get some kind of information. This new trip is going to be added to this My Trips. So a very, very basic, very, very standard flow that I'm sure many of us, including myself, have gone through. If we're booking a new trip, if we're going on vacation, a business trip, you name it, this is a very, very simple flow. And obviously, this kind of flow can be adapted for a different kind of app. It does not need to be, booking trips. It could be booking cars, booking Airbnbs, right? Buying things on Amazon, you name it. You guys get it. You guys understand it. Now, this is a very, very standard flow and it works, right? I mean, you can easily build an app with FlutterFlow or another no-code tool that does exactly this. And your app is going to work. Users is going to log in, they're going to go through the motions, and ultimately they're going to, maybe book a hotel, or maybe they're going to abandon the flow in the middle. Doesn't really matter, but, they will be able to do it. And, you will be able to provide value to the user in this sense. But there's one issue with this flow that haunts pretty much all no-code tools. And that is, it's very, very difficult or pretty much impossible to do any kind of background activity, background tasks. So let me show you exactly what I mean. So let's say the user has logged in and they're browsing, they're going through the flow, and you want to, do something in the background. Okay. You want to maybe connect to another system. Maybe you want to send an email somewhere. Maybe you want to send an email to the user. You want to do a background task while the user is browsing. Okay, you want to do something in the background. Okay, another scenario is these things right here. So let's say the user does not confirm. Okay, so the user abandons it in the middle. I mean, you can track, you can see that the user is going through the flow, but they do not confirm. Okay, so they end up on the last page, they just don't click submit. Okay, you can't do anything, right? Maybe you want to send, you want to search for other deals, or you want to, do some kind of calculation in the background. Maybe it's going to take you 15 minutes. Maybe it's going to take you 30 minutes. You want to do something once the user has left the app. Okay, you can't really do that with FlutterFlow. You can do something immediately, but you can't do something that's going to take time and then, send the user an email or contact them or do something else. You can't do that, right? Another example is, let's say the user confirmed. Okay, the user has confirmed, they put their credit card details, they paid for their hotel, they paid for their apartment. You can't send them like a check-in reminder, right? So like maybe 48 hours before their departure date, you can't really send them a check-in reminder. You can't really do that with FlutterFlow. Okay. Another example is maybe you want to find car rentals. Okay. So they confirm, but you want to look for car rentals, and maybe it's going to take you an hour, right? To contact systems, to do some calculations. Maybe it's going to take you 30 minutes. Again, you really can't do that with FlutterFlow. Okay. You really can't do that. It's a little, it's not what FlutterFlow and all these no-code tools are built for. Okay. And here's another task. Something else. So what I'm trying to say here, and what all of these examples have in common, is that while the user is interacting with your app, okay, you can do anything that you want, right? While they are on, directly on your app, right? They're kind of, moving along, right? They're interacting with FlutterFlow or some other tool. Yeah, you can do anything. As soon as the user is gone, okay, maybe they abandon the flow, or maybe they finish the flow, they're not using your app anymore. You can't really do anything at that point. FlutterFlow and all of these no-code tools, their job is done as soon as the user stops using your app. Okay, it's very, very important to understand. That's kind of what they're built for, and really that's their main strength and also one of their main limitations. Okay, it's like this is what they do, but that's all they do. Okay, and so obviously you can do so much more. You can enhance your app, you can make it more robust, you can send them reminders, you can send them an email and say, hey, it looks like you did not confirm. We found you better deals. Okay, you can send them an email today, you can send them an email in a couple of days. We found you better deal. We price match something. We realize, okay, there's a discount to this city. You want to go to this city. How about this city? Okay, or maybe some user canceled. We found you, even, a place that you were searching for that wasn't available when you were searching for it, but now it's available. Okay, so there's so many things that you can do, beginning from a random background task, ending in a check-in reminder or anything else. There's so many things that you can do, but FlutterFlow and a lot of these other no-code tools are not designed to do that because they're focused on the user interaction. Okay, so now that you understand the problem, now that you understand ways of making your app richer, right, and more convenient for the users, right, making it more useful, having your app provide more value to the user, let's talk about some solutions. Okay, and then later in the video I'm going to be showing you a really nice method to implement some of this functionality that's going to work really, really nicely with FlutterFlow apps, as well as some of the other no-code builders you might be using. Now, there are tons of different ways of solving this problem, but I want to focus on three main ways that you're going to find helpful depending on what you want to do. So if you're using Firebase, and more specifically, you're using Firestore database, and if you're using something like FlutterFlow, there's a very, very high chance you're probably using this system as your storage backend. And thus, one of the easiest ways to add this background task functionality is by using extensions. Okay, so if you log into your Firebase console and you click on extensions, you're going to be on this screen right here. And what are extensions? Well, in layman's terms, extensions are basically pre-built logic, pre-built pieces of code that are able to do something as a result of the data in your system. So as an example, let's say you create a customer document. Okay, well, you can have an extension that listens on that collection and sees that you created a new customer, and then it could fire off an email. Okay, so if we come to this extensions here, you can see that you have tons of different extensions here. So you can search with Algolia, you can search with Elasticsearch, but right here you have trigger email. And when you click on install, you will be able to specify the project that you're working with. So let's say I'm working with this project right here, and I can click on next, I can click enable here, I can click on next again, I can say next, and here I can actually configure this extension. So I can configure my email provider, email service, and then I can configure the email documents collection. So this is going to be the path to the collection that contains the documents used to build and send emails. And here I can configure the from address, the reply to users collection, templates collection. The last three are optional, but you can hover over the question mark and you can kind of see what this field is for. Maybe you'll find it useful. And then you can click on install extension. And what this is going to do is that it's going to start to listen for a specific collection that you specify. So in this here, we have email documents collection. And anytime you create a document or record in that collection, it's going to fire off an email. So this is a very, very easy and very straightforward, kind of a very no-code way of building this background functionality into your apps. Okay, so this could be useful, for instance, if you want to send a confirmation email. Okay, so you create a new record with FlutterFlow or another tool, and then once that new record is created in that specific collection, and that collection you specified as you were configuring the extension, it's going to fire off an email. But you know, there's a bunch of other extensions. They do various things. You could shorten URLs, translate text, etc., etc. So this is a very simple way to do something as something has happened, meaning that if you added a document, and you know, obviously you're going to be adding a document in a tool such as FlutterFlow because something has happened, you can execute some kind of an event. Really, really nice and easy and simple way. So check this out. Go to extensions.dev/extensions and have a look and see. Maybe you'll find something useful for your specific case. Now, a second way to add background task capability to your app is by uploading a function. So if you go to this tab here inside of your Firebase console, you're going to see functions that you may have installed, functions that are active. So in my example, I have just one function called duplicate record. And all this function does is that it duplicates a document from one collection to another collection. This was important when I was building a chat app. But essentially what these functions are, and they're called Firebase Cloud functions, they are a more customizable way of doing extensions because all extensions are pre-built functions. And so if you come to extensions, and as you're looking around, you realize, well, there's really no extension for my specific use case, for my specific background task. Maybe you need to do optical character recognition. You want to do OCR, or you want to do something like that. There's no extension that does it. The next step is to build a custom function. This is relatively simple, relatively easy. So for instance, for this duplicate record, this is my custom function right here. Okay, all it's doing is basically waiting on create, meaning that whenever a document is created in this collection, it goes ahead and creates a new document. It adds a document to this collection. Okay, very, very simple function. This is very, very simple, but still it does require a little bit of programming, a little bit of code, even though my function is like, you know, it's only 3 lines, right? Inside this main function, it's only 3 lines. And really, a lot of your functions that are going to be very, very simple. And so this is a really nice way to react to an event that happened with my Firebase. And remember, the first method, extensions, and this method with these cloud functions, we are listening on our Firebase database because that is a really nice way to kind of react to events because you are controlling the database from your NoCode tool. So it makes things very, very simple and robust to kind of centralize all of these activities around your Firebase database. Now, let's say that you looked at the first method, extensions, you haven't found an extension that does exactly what you want, and you also looked at doing a custom cloud function like I have here, and you also realize that you can't quite figure out how you want to do it. You're not really sure. And after all, you want more of a no-code solution. This is a no-code channel, and you want to avoid code as much as possible. Well, I have a solution for you as well. In this third solution, you're going to be using an integration tool that is powerful enough to do pretty much anything that you want and achieve any kind of task in the background. So there are tons and tons of tools that do these kinds of integrations, and they all kind of work the same. They all are very, very similar. One of my favorite tools is called make.com. It used to be called integromat.com, and I'm not affiliated with it at all. I just really like this tool. So you can simply Google for make.com or just go to make.com. You can click on this. And once you sign up for the free account, as you can see, I'm using the free account, you're going to be on a page that looks something like this. Now, the area that you want to be paying attention to is these things, scenarios, okay? A scenario is basically a flow. It's basically an automation, okay? Every tool calls it differently. Some tools call it automation, some tools call it flows, some tools call it work methods. And other tools like this one call it scenarios. So if you click on scenarios right here, you can create an automation that does pretty much anything that you want. So let me show you what you can do. You can click on create a new automation. And once you do that, you're going to be on the screen. And the way these automations work is you basically have two things. You have a trigger and you have a response. Okay. Trigger and an action. Okay, so let's think about how we can structure it. And that really depends on what you want to do. So if we go back to this diagram, let's say you want to send the user a check-in reminder. Okay, you want to send them a check-in reminder 48 hours before. Well, in this case, you can go back here, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a trigger that's going to look at our customers, at our users, and it's going to check, okay, is this user, do they have a flight in like 24 hours? Okay, so let me show you a simplified example. You're going to click this button right here and you're going to type fire, and you're going to see Google Cloud Firestore. So if you click that, and what we essentially just did is we created a trigger that's based off our Firebase database. Okay, and once you see this form here, you want to add a new connection. So I already have a connection, but what you're going to do is you're going to click on add, and then you're going to see this dialog box called create a connection, and here you need a client ID and a client secret. And so how do you get this information? Well, you can simply click on this and you're going to have a tutorial that tells you how to get this information. And essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to give this tool access to your Firebase project so that it can read the data and then it can react on that data. Okay, so I recommend reading this part right here, connecting Make to Google services using a custom OAuth client, right? So if you click on this right here, you can kind of read their instruction. But in a nutshell, what you want to do is you want to go to console.cloud.google.com. You want to choose your project. This is your Firebase project here. And then you want to create a new credential. So you want to click on create credentials. You're going to pick OAuth client ID. And then you want to fill out the form exactly how I have it here. So I called it web app and I also gave it a URL. So remember, make.com used to be called integromat.com. So you have to give this URL because this allows Google to connect with this service. Once you do that, you're going to have your client ID. And you're also going to have the secret as well. So you can reset the secret right here. I already have the secret. And once you have this information, you can simply go back to make.com, enter it here. And after you enter it, this tool is going to get access to your Firebase database, which is important for this tool to work. So after you did everything, you're going to have a screen that looks something like this. And now this tool has complete access to your database. You can read the data, you can do other things. And now you can use this tool to use your database as a trigger. Now, the method that we picked initially is get a document. Let's say we don't want to get a document. Let's say we want to search for a specific document and do a query in order to find that one specific document. Well, now you can simply click on this and you can pick. So let's say we want to do a query. We want to query documents. That's kind of what we want. Now, this is going to be separate. We're going to right click. We're going to do settings. We're going to say connect. We can now delete this one because we don't need to do a get document. We're going to say delete module, and we can even drag this thing over here. Okay. Now, what is this thing right here? Well, this thing is going to specify how this module is going to get triggered. So you can click on this and you can run the scenario, every 15 minutes. You can run it once. You can run it every day, days of the week. So in our example, if you want to send the user a reminder, a good way would be to run it every day. That way we could check for users that may have a flight in like 48 hours. Okay. So let's say we want to run this at midnight. We're going to say, okay. And now what we have set up is something very, very powerful. What we have just set up is a scheduled task. Next, we need to configure the actual tasks that we need to run, this actual trigger. So we're going to right click on this. we're gonna configure this query documents to query for the documents that we need. So let's input the document path. So we're going to say by drop down, we're going to click here. We're going to pick the project. So it's listing the projects that I have. I only have 2 projects in that Firebase account. So I'm just going to pick one project. Here, I need to pick the parent resource. Now, if I go back into my Firebase, I can see that I have a bunch of collections here, these top level collections. So let's say I want to search for customers. Then my parent resource is just going to be slash. It's going to be just the top. So if I come back here, I'm going to come here, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to just pick the slash because we're going to specify customers later, but the parent of customers is the root, nobody, right? So we're going to scroll down. We're going to be using the query builder and we're going to add our first field. And what we want is name, right? So if we go back to our Firebase, we see that we have customers and we have this document here. We have email, flight sign, we have name, and we have price. So we have a bunch of fields, but we have name. So what we want to do in this example is, let's say we want to find Sam, okay? Just for the sake of the example, we're going to say we want name. We want to pull up name. Collection ID is customers. And now what we want to do is we want to say name, and we're going to say string equals to Sam. Okay, that way we just want to pull up that one document where name is equal to Sam. We're just going to say limit to 10. Okay, we know we only have one Sam, so it doesn't really matter. And we're going to say okay. Okay, it's refreshing metadata. And now what we can do is we can click on this, run once, and see if it succeeds. So we're going to say run one. Okay, so we don't have any errors. Otherwise, it would have been like red here. And we can click here and we can take a look. What do we get back? So if we click on this, we got back the record. We got the actual document. It starts with 2VL. So if we go back here, you see it says 2VL. So we got this document. And that's pretty much half the battle, right? Being able to get this document, because now I can click on this plus sign and I can find another module. So maybe this is going to be an email module. Email, I'm going to click on email. I'm going to say send an email. Okay, now I need to configure this account. So I can click on here. I can add an account. I can add my email. That's all very, very simple. But the power here is that, look at this. We have two recipient. I can click on this. And once I click on this, I have access to all the fields that I pulled up in the previous example. Now we actually have an email field here. We're just pulling names. So why don't we pull up both the email and the name? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say settings, and I'm going to have another item. So I'm going to pull another. I'm going to say email, name, and email. I'm going to say okay. And now I'm going to run this. I just want to run this module. Fields, name, Sam, email, sam@sam.com. So it's pulling in the right document here. And now if I click on this module, and I scroll down to, let's say, add a recipient. So I can click on this and that's going to populate just with the email here. So now we have email. I can say subject, your check-in, your flight is in 48 hours. Please check in now, or something like this. And then you can have the content, meaning that you're going to be able to send a complete email with a link, etc., etc. Maybe to their flight ID, to their booking ID. You can attach it there because you're going to be pulling it from this database. And obviously, you can add more modules, right? Maybe you send an email, maybe the email replied with something else, or maybe you want to add a module in the middle. You can do that very, very easily. And the power here is that this is going to happen much later after the user has completed the flow on your app. So if I am, browsing on your app, and let's say I finish booking the flight and my flight is in a month, the app is done. FlutterFlow is not going to do anything at this point. But this background task, this scheduled task is going to go off in, 48 hours, right? And here you can create logic where you can, take the difference between the future flight time, the current time, and see if it's less than 48 hours. And if so, you're going to pull up that user and it's automatically going to continue the flow. Now, there's so many other things that you can do. Look at this. You have so many connectors here, lots and lots of connectors. So regardless of what you're trying to do, you will be able to do it. You can output to a CSV. You can output to anything. Another thing I really want to touch up on real quick is the type of trigger. Okay, so here we are using a scheduled task. So we are running it at a set interval. In this case, we're running it every day. You can do it days of the week. You can do it on demand even. But there are also other ways of triggering these flows. One popular way is by doing webhooks. So for instance, I can click here and I can search for web hooks, and I can see I have a webhook here. So I can do a custom webhook or I can do a custom mail hook. A webhook is when you connect using HTTP, right? So you just send an HTTP request. Mail hook is when you send an email. So we're going to do a webhook here, and here you can add another module. So, you can add a module where, you want to do something, right? And in this case, if you click here, you can just choose a webhook or add a new webhook. And once you do that, you are given a URL, and once you send a request to this URL, you can send your request in any data, in any format. This system is automatically going to parse the data, and that data is going to be available in subsequent modules. So just like how here we have an email that's dependent on this data here you can have another module that's dependent on this data here, which in turn is dependent on the data that you send from your FlutterFlow app. And inside your FlutterFlow app, you can simply do a regular request to this URL here. You can just post data using JSON to this URL here, and this thing is going to redetermine the data structure and make it available to subsequent modules. And as a result, you can build amazing flows, right? You can have a scheduled task, which is perfect for this scenario. You can have another scheduled task that maybe runs maybe in an hour after the user completed their booking. You can do a when the user does not confirm. So you can go out and run a task and send them an email, say, hey, you did not confirm. Here are some other deals you might be interested in. That can also run an hour after the user has finished, they did not confirm. And so you can run all kinds of background tasks depending on your unique environment. And what's really nice about this specific way of doing it via this integration tool is that you're kind of separated from your app, right? So you can focus on your app, you can get your app done, and then you can focus on the background stuff later to enhance your app and make it more interesting and more exciting for your user. I'm sure you can find a ton of different ideas or different things that you can do to enhance your app while the user is not actively using your app. And this is going to be awesome whether the user actually goes through with the purchase, right? Whatever your app is doing, maybe buying an e-commerce product, buying a ticket, booking a hotel, or does not go through with the purchase, this abandons the flow essentially, because you could hopefully convince them to perhaps purchase another product or take you up on a different offer, right? There's always an opportunity to do that. And so those are the three main strategies of building the very, very important and very crucial background task functionality into your no-code app. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video and you love no-code and you want to take your no-code knowledge to the next level, you want to build that one app you've been putting off for a very, very long time, or you are working on a bunch of apps, but you're stuck somewhere, you don't know what's happening, then you definitely want to check out my Patreon page. Not only will you get access to all the apps that I built with FlutterFlow, you'll be able to view and or clone them. You'll also get access to other apps that I built with other no-code tools. But in addition to that, you also get access to extra content. You're going to get access to my Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, as well as my Patreon exclusive masterclass series where we do a deep dive on specific areas, specific topics that a lot of users have questions about. We actually do surveys on our Patreon page and see what the users are working on, and then we do a deep dive or a Q&A or a live stream and try to go deeper in that specific subject area than I cover on my main YouTube channel. In fact, later this week we're probably going to be doing another big Q&A, and I'm going to be answering a lot of questions from the community that I'm very, very sure many of you are struggling with as well. Plus, when you join our Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. So if you're not yet a member, I definitely encourage you to check out the page and hopefully join. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more videos having to do with FlutterFlow or no code, take a look at the video appearing on your screen right now.